It's crazy to think that something that's written in ones and zeros can bring down several countries all at once and also kill innocent people. Yes, you heard it right. What if one fine day you woke up and you decided to log into a government website only to realize that it has been hijacked and your sensitive information is at risk? Well, we're just scratching the surface here with how dangerous cyber warfare can be, as this is by far the most dangerous way to wage a war ever since the history of human beings. The technology that we have today is completely reinventing the way countries wage war. Most likely the future wars will be shaped by new technologies that already exist today, like smaller drones and robots on the battlefield. Or we might completely get rid of a battlefield. But wait, how is that even possible? Well, stick around till the end of the video to know a lot more about cyber warfare and how dangerous it can be. For starters, cyber warfare includes techniques and activities that are designed to gather advanced data about enemies and then use the same information for manipulating an individual's perception of a situation, which will then affect decision-making and might end up gathering groups of supporters with the intention to take down an entire country and its government. But this is just one form of cyber warfare. Information warfare, for example, in the form of propaganda and political coercion, can be as severe as a physical attack on the entire nation's population. This includes release of falsified messages of hate, fear, or hope through social media, which can be used for deception and manipulation. This way, cyber adversaries would be able to achieve their strategic goals without involving the military. Many countries are believed to outsource their cyber operations to organizations that are not directly linked with the government to conduct cyber attacks on their behalf. Cyber warfare is a hard term to properly define because most people tend to consider the term itself as a misnomer due to the fact that we still did not have a full-blown cyber war. Even the experts in this field clearly don't know what cyber warfare would look like. But nonetheless, most countries are preparing themselves against attacks like these. But what kind of cyber attacks are these countries preparing for in the first place, if there is no clear-cut definition as to what a cyber warfare is? The easiest way to explain this would be by understanding some of the common cyber warfare threats that these governments witnessed in the past. The first one would be propaganda. You could say that propaganda is a soft threat or a second-tier form of cyber warfare. These are usually tied to control what the public thinks about a particular topic. This is done by controlling what the public gets to see, and the easiest way to do so is with the help of social media. But again, every country uses some form of propaganda to push their ideologies. But the problem is, as time progresses, these propagandas become more subtle and more insidious, and we oftentimes tend to forget that these are just propaganda and not the real thing, because the devil lies in the details. More serious cases of social media manipulation, online censorship, and fake news websites can be categorized as psychological warfare because these methods would create distrust in the government. This can also influence elections and several other government activities. These propagandas will also delegitimize social and political structures upon which cyber defenses rely on, and that is a huge problem. Propagandas through social media or other online channels might look very insignificant, but it can actually do a lot more harm than you think it can. But that is not the only form of cyber warfare. You might have heard about denial of service attacks, where legitimate users are unable to access information on other network sources. This is when cyber warfare targets high-profile services such as banking or credit card companies. This means your sensitive data is at stake, and that is not something that you want to deal with, especially when it comes to your finances. Rival governments will employ a denial of service attack in order to take down a competitor's website. But in more extreme cases, you get to see a state-sanctioned denial of service attack that could cripple an entire web of infrastructures. In most cases, denial of service attacks are linked to ransomware implementations, where governments or companies are required to pay a fixed amount to get back to normal. But your data might have already been compromised. The other way cyber warfare is carried out is by espionage. Espionage is used to expose major nation-state powers. This will result in heightened tensions between countries that are at war. Most experts refer to espionage as a softer threat, something that will eventually lead to a larger threat. And finally, you have the act of sabotage. When we talk about a cyber threat, you might be thinking of credit card information being stolen, or websites going down, or your sensitive information being sold on the dark web. Sabotaging in cyber warfare involves targeting computers, satellites, or infrastructures that most people rely on. This means that the act of sabotaging will cause mass panic and disruption. Most common targets include water systems, financial systems, and even power grids. So you might be thinking, why are governments investing a lot of money into cyber warfare even though it's totally unpredictable? Well, governments are aware of the fact that modern societies are so reliant on computer systems to run everything from financial services to transportation networks. Hackers can easily get into these systems with viruses or other tools to shut down these systems, which could get a lot more effective when it comes to causing damage than a traditional military campaign using troops with guns and missiles. A traditional military attack requires a lot of planning, but a cyber attack can be launched almost immediately from any distance without any obvious evidence of buildup, making it extremely difficult to monitor. This is the reason why governments and intelligence agencies are worrying about attacks against vital infrastructure like banking systems or power grids, because this will give attackers a way to bypass the country's traditional defenses. The fear of cyber weapons from rival countries, combined with the desire to harness these tools to increase their defensive measures, is forcing so many countries into the cyber arms race, and this might be the best way to deal with it. When it comes to targets, military systems are an obvious choice because this will prevent commanders from communicating with their troops, or even informing about the enemy that is involved in a cyber attack, which would give the attacker a major advantage. You cannot unsee the fact that most of the developed economies rely on computerized systems for everything from food to power and transportation, and that alone makes things a lot easier for attackers to target automated systems. The other problem is the fact that some of these systems are decades old, and they are not designed to withstand the test of time, especially during a time when security should be our top priority. These older systems are more vulnerable to attack, and the organizations don't bother to update their system because they do not consider themselves to be a target. Now, you might be thinking, what is the motivation behind such attacks? Well, the first one is definitely military-based. Modern military lacks strategies for full-blown acts of cyber warfare. The relatively new nature of these threats makes it difficult to create policies to determine what exactly is required. This means that most of the cyber warfare strategies that the military drafts are simply theoretical. But job opportunities are popping up with cyber warfare branches, and this might contribute to the cybersecurity job boom, which is a good thing. You could expect civilian-based attacks because everybody, or at least most of the people, already have access to the internet, so it is easier to target civilians. The backbone of most modern systems requires an internet connection, client service system, communication link, and web servers. Laptops, desktops, and your smartphone are a common target for hackers, making it one of the easiest tools for cyber warfare. We already have self-driving cars with some of the most advanced technology out there. Maybe in the future, these cars could also be hacked and safety can be compromised. Once we begin to automate several other systems, the chances for more attacks like these in the future will be high. This means that our reliance on automation and computerization will only make things worse. But that doesn't mean we can avoid automation, considering the world we live in today. But most of the cyber warfare comes from politically motivated agenda. We have hackers around the world that might help rival countries to hack into the systems, and will end up causing a lot of disruption, especially with denial of service attacks. This is done to bring attention to their cause, or spread their ideology. In the end, this type of warfare is a very new concept, as we still have not experienced a full-fledged one yet. Once we get to know more about what an actual cyber warfare looks like, only then will we be able to address many strategic and ethical questions that may arise. We need to find out the thin line between cyber defense and human rights violation. The entire cyberspace is uncharted territory, and we will undoubtedly find ourselves in several high-stress situations. The fact that we don't know much about what a fully fledged cyber warfare might look like is by far a bigger threat than cyber warfare itself, Because if things go out of control, our existing defense systems might not be adequate enough to prevent these from happening in the first place. Cyber warfare would also reveal so many unseen weaknesses in the defense system of a country, and it can also be quite challenging to contain. So, to sum things up, cyber warfare could turn every gadget that you own into a weapon on a virtual battlefield. The worst part being the fact that the damage can be felt in the real world. Some experts argue that cyber war might never take place, but others argue that cyber war is taking place right now. But we think we're somewhere in the middle, and that makes it even more dangerous.